In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to add and use folder tracks to your project, and they can really help clean up your project window. They don't add any functionality to the mix console, but they do a lot with this project window, and let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to use my mouse wheel to scroll up and down through the track list, and you can see that all of these tracks are taking up an awful lot of screen real estate. I can't really see them all at once. And so while I could change the view of the tracks, for example, I could come over here to this little drop-down box and choose Zoom Tracks Full to see all the tracks at once on this low resolution that I use for these courses, but then I can't see a lot of detail on the tracks. So unless you have a gigantic screen, it's sometimes a little hard to see all of these tracks, especially when you have your track counts get higher and higher. So I'm going to come back to Zoom 2 rows here, and now I'm going to use folder tracks to clean up this project window even more. So I'm going to scroll to the top here, and I'm going to look at the drum tracks, which I can see much easier now because in the last tutorial we colorized them. And what I want to do is put all of these tracks inside of one track folder. So I'm going to click on the first track and then use my mouse wheel to scroll down a little bit until I get to the 11th track. And then I'm going to hold the Shift key on my computer keyboard and click that 11th or last track. Then I can right or control click on any of those tracks and choose Move Selected Tracks to New Folder. And what that's going to do is pack all of those tracks inside of a folder track. So now I'm going to scroll up to the top of the window. You can see a folder has now been added to the top of that track list. And see this little indent? See how it's not flush with the edge of the track column anymore? That means that this track is packed inside of this folder track. So I'm going to click on that folder track and make it the same color as the rest of the drum tracks, which is yellow. Then I'm going to call that drum folder Drums. Now, this is the great thing. I can open the folder like it is now to view all of the tracks inside of the folder all at once, or I can click the folder icon to close the folder. So a folder track lets you pack all of those tracks visually inside of one folder. And then you can also do some really cool editing techniques, like if you wanted to cut the drum folder into different segments, watch what happens. I'm going to type 3 on my computer keyboard to get my scissors tool. I'm going to make a few cuts on the folder track. Now when I open the folder track, you'll notice that all of those same cuts happened on every single event inside of the folder. So I'm going to hit undo a few times because I'm not going to want to save those events. But I wanted to show you that there is a visual advantage to using folder tracks because it helps clean up your project window, but there's also an editing advantage because you can edit the folder, and in doing so, you're editing all of the tracks that are contained within. So I'm going to close that drum folder back up again, and I'm going to type 1 on my computer keyboard to get back to my Object Select tool. And then I'm going to do the same thing to these other tracks. I'm going to click and then Shift-click these 2 bass tracks. I'm going to right-click and choose Move Selected Tracks to New Folder. I'm going to call this Bass. I'm going to make it the same color as the basses, which is red, and then close that folder. Then guitars, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to select this track and then scroll down with my mouse wheel to the last guitar track, right or control click and choose Move Selected Tracks to New Folder. This folder is going to be called Guitars, which I abbreviate GTR, and then I'm going to color it one of the purple colors, close that folder. Then I'm going to go to the piano tracks or the electric piano tracks, move those to a new folder, change this to Keys, colorize it to the same color, so I'm just going to choose one of those greens, close up the folder. Finally, the vocals. Click the first one, Shift-click the last one, move selected tracks to new folder, change the name to Vox, which is the way that I abbreviate vocals, and then colorize it to one of the blue colors, and then close the folder up. Now look at the project window. I can see all of the components of all of those tracks that are packed into the folders. So now I don't have to worry about looking at all the tracks when I'm editing or mixing. Instead, I can just open up the folder to reveal the tracks and the events that are contained within. So by using folder tracks, it really helps to clean up your project window. But again, it doesn't do anything in the mix console. I'm going to type F3 and then F2 to get rid of the transport panel. So you'll see that all of the channels inside of the mix console are oriented in the exact same way as before, but those folder tracks in the project window really help clean up what we're looking at visually inside of the project. And I'm going to quickly point out a couple of other advantages to folder tracks. You'll notice that they have some of the same controls as the tracks themselves, things like the mute and solo buttons, and the record enable and monitor enable button. So during the recording process, if you make a folder track that has all the tracks inside of it already, you can use that folder record enable button to record enable all of the tracks all at once. Or if you wanted to solo just the drums, you could click the solo button of that drum folder, and now when you listen to the project, you'll be hearing nothing but drums. Now if I click solo again and then close up that folder, I could listen to the bass by clicking the solo button on the bass folder. Same with the guitars, keyboards, and vocals. So those are some other advantages to folder tracks, and I would recommend that you use those when you start the mix process on any of your Cubase projects. And in the next tutorial, I'm going to show you the group channel tracks.